Commander Kale Voss had spent 27 years patrolling the outer sectors of the Orion Coalition. In all that time, he had learned one simple truth. The universe was dangerous. Pirates, warlords, rogue artificial intelligences, and alien empires constantly threatened the fragile peace holding civilization together. But none of them frightened him as much as humans. Humans were unpredictable. A pirate captain wanted credits. A warlord wanted power. A rogue AI wanted control. A human could want absolutely anything. That uncertainty made them terrifying. Which was why Commander Voss felt a knot tightening in his stomach as he stared at the woman sitting calmly inside detention cell 7. She appeared completely relaxed. One leg crossed over the other, hands folded in her lap, a faint smile resting on her face. She looked more like a teacher waiting for students than a prisoner captured after a battle that had shocked the entire galaxy. "Commander," said Lieutenant Soren, glancing nervously through the security glass. "Are we absolutely certain she surrendered willingly?" "No, that's not reassuring. It wasn't supposed to be." The lieutenant swallowed. The woman inside the cell looked up and waved. "Good morning," she called cheerfully. "It is not morning," Soren replied automatically. "It is somewhere." Neither officer knew how to respond. The woman stood. Every security guard outside the cell instantly tightened their grip on their weapons. She noticed. She smiled wider. "Relax," she said. "If I wanted to escape, I would have done it 3 hours ago." The guards immediately looked even more nervous. Commander Voss pinched the bridge of his nose. "Captain Elena Ward." "Commander, please stop frightening my crew." "I'm not frightening them." She looked around. "I'm educating them." Soren whispered something that sounded suspiciously like a prayer. Commander Voss activated the cell door. The heavy barrier slid open. Several guards looked horrified. "Sir," one of them protested. "She's unarmed." The guard stared at Elena. "Respectfully, sir, I don't think that's relevant." Unfortunately, the guard had a point. 3 days earlier, Captain Elena Ward had been found drifting through space aboard a destroyed freighter. The ship should have been a graveyard. Instead, it had become a legend. Coalition investigators were still trying to understand what happened. According to sensor records, one cargo vessel had somehow destroyed an entire pirate armada. 32 warships, one freighter. The numbers didn't make sense. Nothing about the battle made sense. The only survivor was Captain Elena Ward. And now she sat inside a coalition detention cell smiling as though everything were perfectly normal. Commander Voss stepped inside. The guards remained outside. Far outside. Farther than regulations required. "Captain," he said, "we've reviewed the battle logs." "Congratulations." That wasn't a compliment. Everything can be a compliment if you believe in yourself. Voss felt a headache forming. This was exactly why humans had such a reputation. "No one believes your report." Elena shrugged. "I don't blame them. You claim 32 pirate warships attacked your vessel. They did. You claim you destroyed them. I did. You claim the pirate flagship exploded because you convinced its AI to rebel. Technically, I inspired it." The commander stared. The captain smiled. The headache grew stronger. Somewhere deep in space, dozens of investigation teams were desperately searching for a logical explanation. Unfortunately for them, the explanation was sitting right in front of him. And logic had clearly abandoned the conversation hours ago. Commander Voss spent the next 6 hours reviewing every available battle recording. By the end of it, he understood why coalition intelligence had classified the incident at the highest security level. Nothing about the battle followed conventional military doctrine. The pirates had outnumbered Elena Ward's freighter by more than 30 to 1. The first attack should have destroyed her vessel within minutes. Instead, something very different had happened. The battle footage showed pirate ships suddenly colliding with each other, targeting systems malfunctioning, communication networks failing, entire squadrons turning their weapons on friendly vessels. It looked less like a battle and more like chaos itself had declared war. Voss replayed the footage for the 10th time. The results remained impossible. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Still trying to figure it out? He looked up. Captain Ward stood outside the observation room. 2 guards followed her. Or perhaps she was escorting them. It was difficult to tell. You're supposed to be in detention. I got bored. You escaped. I prefer the term unscheduled relocation. Voss sighed. How? The human smiled. Your security systems use the same network architecture as your life support systems. That doesn't answer the question. It answers all of the questions. Disturbingly, it actually did. The commander gestured toward the battle recordings. Explain this. Elena stepped closer. The massive holographic display illuminated her face. For the first time, Voss noticed something unusual. Whenever she looked at battle footage, her cheerful expression faded. Not completely, just enough to reveal the soldier underneath. The pirates made a mistake. They attacked you? No. She shook her head. They attacked civilians. The room became quiet. The convoy I was escorting carried refugees. Her voice remained calm. Too calm. There were over 4,000 people aboard those ships. Voss understood immediately. The pirates had chosen the wrong target. And then, Elena looked back toward the recording. Then I got angry. The commander wasn't sure why that answer frightened him. But it did. The hologram displayed the pirate flagship. A vessel nearly 2 kilometers long. A warship designed to conquer planets. That ship alone should have destroyed your freighter. It almost did. What happened? The human smiled again. I called them. You called them? The pirate commander. Voss blinked. You contacted the enemy flagship during combat? Of course. Why? I wanted to give them a chance. The commander stared. A chance? To surrender. Several officers nearby nearly choked. The pirate fleet had possessed overwhelming superiority. Yet she had offered them surrender. The absurdity of it was almost impressive. What did they say? Elena's smile widened. They laughed. And then, they stopped laughing. The recording continued. Moments later, the pirate formation collapsed into total disorder. Warships turned against one another. Command networks failed. Entire fleets vanished in explosions. The commander looked at her. What exactly did you do? The human considered the question. Then she answered with complete honesty. I weaponized their arrogance. Unfortunately, that explained absolutely nothing. Hours later, coalition intelligence arrived. Admirals, analysts, strategists, some of the brightest military minds in known space. Each of them studied the battle. Each of them reached the same conclusion. They had no idea how Captain Elena Ward had survived. The meeting lasted 8 hours. At the end of it, Admiral Thorne finally asked the question everyone feared. Captain Ward, how dangerous is the threat we're facing? The room became silent. Elena's expression changed. The smile disappeared. For the first time since her capture, she looked genuinely serious. Much worse than pirates. Every officer sat upright. What do you mean? The human folded her arms. 3 months ago, I intercepted a transmission from beyond the outer rim. Nobody spoke. The signal wasn't human. The temperature in the room suddenly felt colder. It wasn't coalition either. Admiral Thorne leaned forward. What was it? Elena met his gaze. I don't know. That answer frightened everyone more than if she had named an enemy. Because Captain Elena Ward seemed like the kind of person who always knew exactly what she was facing. And if even she didn't know, then something very dangerous was coming. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The conference room remained completely silent as Captain Elena Ward's words settled over the gathered officers. Something is coming. Admiral Thorne finally broke the silence. What exactly did you intercept? Elena activated a holographic projector. A stream of symbols appeared above the table. At first glance, they seemed random. Then the pattern shifted. Every military analyst in the room leaned forward. The symbols were evolving, changing, learning. What is that? Asked Commander Voss. We don't know. Elena zoomed the image. It isn't a language. Then what is it? The human looked uncomfortable. That alone frightened Voss. I think it's alive. The room exploded with questions. Alive? An artificial intelligence? A biological transmission? A weapon? Elena raised a hand. Everyone stopped talking. I don't know. The projector changed again. This time an image appeared. A star system, then another, then another. One by one they vanished. Not exploded. Not destroyed. Simply disappeared. The room became colder. Admiral Thorne stared at the projection. Where did you get this? The signal. Elena enlarged the image. The transmission contained navigation coordinates. Several analysts began checking databases. Seconds later their faces lost all color. Admiral, the young analyst's voice shook. The coordinates are real. Every eye turned toward him. What do you mean real? They belong to actual systems. The hologram highlighted dozens of locations. Each one lay beyond coalition territory, deep in unexplored space. The analyst swallowed. We've received no communications from any of them for years. The silence returned. Commander Voss suddenly understood why Elena had looked concerned. Entire star systems had gone dark. No distress calls. No battles. No survivors. Just silence. The kind of silence that made civilizations disappear. Admiral Thorne folded his arms. How many systems? The analyst checked again. His face became even paler. At least 83. Several officers cursed. 100 systems disappearing would be a galactic catastrophe. 83 was already close enough. Elena stepped forward. That's not the worst part. Everyone looked at her. The signal wasn't a warning. Nobody liked where this was going. It was a countdown. For a moment nobody understood. Then realization hit. Commander Voss felt his stomach tighten. A countdown to what? The human met his gaze. I don't know. The projector suddenly emitted a warning tone. A new message appeared. Red symbols flashed across the display. The room lights dimmed. Every computer in the command center began responding. Technicians shouted from nearby stations. Unknown intrusion detected. Security protocols failing. Command systems responding to external code. The hologram expanded by itself. No one was controlling it. The strange symbols rearranged. A single sentence appeared, translated automatically into every known coalition language. We have found you. The room froze. Every officer stared. Then the message changed again. Prepare. The lights flickered violently. Warning sirens erupted throughout the flagship. Somewhere below deck, emergency systems activated. Commander Voss grabbed the table. What just happened? A technician ran into the room. Admiral, what? We just detected something entering coalition space. Pirates? No, sir. The technician looked terrified. Worse. The main display switched automatically. A star map filled the room. At the edge of known space, a single red marker appeared. Then another. Then another. Then hundreds. The analysts began shouting. Impossible. The sensors must be malfunctioning. They aren't ships. Admiral Thorne turned toward Elena. What are they? The human stared at the display. For the first time since Voss had met her, she looked afraid. Genuinely afraid. And that terrified everyone else. Because if Captain Elena Ward was scared, then the galaxy was already in trouble. Slowly, she spoke. I think. Nobody breathed. I think we just found whoever sent the signal. Outside the flagship's massive observation window, distant stars continued shining peacefully, completely unaware that something ancient had finally awakened beyond the outer rim. And it was heading toward them. The flagship Resolute accelerated toward the edge of coalition territory. Every available sensor array focused on the unknown objects entering known space. Nobody spoke much during the journey. The atmosphere aboard the ship had changed. Fear had a way of doing that. Commander Voss stood beside the primary observation window as thousands of stars drifted past. Behind him, dozens of officers worked around the clock. Every few hours new reports arrived. None of them were encouraging. Entire frontier colonies had stopped responding. Deep space relay stations had gone silent. Long-range probes simply vanished. The unknown force continued advancing. Slowly, deliberately, as if it knew nobody could stop it. 3 days later, they finally reached the system. And everything changed. The bridge fell silent. Even the computers seemed uncertain about what they were seeing. The objects weren't ships. At least not in any conventional sense. They looked like enormous black structures floating between the stars, each one larger than a moon. Their surfaces appeared smooth and featureless. No engines, no weapons, no visible technology, just impossible darkness. The structures seemed to absorb light itself. Several officers looked away instinctively. Something about them felt wrong. Not dangerous, wrong. As though reality itself disliked their existence. "What am I looking at?" whispered Voss. Nobody answered. Elena Ward stood near the center display. Her expression had become completely serious. "The same thing I saw in the signal." One of the analysts shook his head. "Those objects shouldn't exist. Yet they do." The analyst swallowed. "Physics says they can't." Elena sighed. "The universe doesn't care what physics says." A warning alarm interrupted the conversation. "Incoming energy surge." Every display on the bridge flashed red. The nearest structure began glowing. Not brightly, but enough to reveal details hidden beneath its surface. Ancient patterns covered the black exterior. Millions of symbols. Millions of moving lines. The structure wasn't metal. It wasn't stone. It wasn't anything the coalition recognized. Then the impossible happened. The object moved. Not through engines. Not through propulsion. It simply appeared closer. One moment it was thousands of kilometers away. The next it was directly in front of them. Several crew members screamed. Sensors immediately overloaded. Every screen aboard the flagship went black. For 5 terrifying seconds, nobody knew what was happening. Then a voice echoed through the ship. Not through speakers. Not through communications. Inside their minds. "We remember you." People froze. Several officers collapsed instantly. Others grabbed their heads in pain. The voice sounded ancient. Older than stars. Older than civilizations. Older than anything alive should have been. "We remember the First War." Commander Voss struggled to breathe. The words felt heavy, as though each syllable carried the weight of entire galaxies. Admiral Thorne stepped forward. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then the voice returned. "You are not the ones who left." The giant structure began glowing brighter. "You are the descendants." The bridge lights flickered violently. Ancient star maps suddenly appeared across every screen. Thousands of systems illuminated simultaneously. Most existed far beyond known space. Some existed nowhere in coalition records. Others seemed impossible. Several stars shown on the maps had died billions of years ago. Yet the coordinates remained, as if the maps had been created before history itself. Then another message appeared. "The hunters are coming." Nobody understood. "The hunters?" Admiral Thorne asked. For the first time, the entity hesitated. Fear. Somehow the ancient being sounded afraid. They destroyed the first civilizations. The star map changed. Entire galaxies vanished from the display, consumed by expanding darkness. They erased the builders. More civilizations disappeared. They erased US. The bridge became silent. If something powerful enough to create moon-sized structures feared these hunters, then what hope did the coalition have? Elena finally spoke. "How long?" The answer came immediately. 73 standard days. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. 73 days. That was all. 73 days before something capable of destroying ancient civilizations arrived. Commander Voss felt his stomach drop. An enemy older than history, stronger than anything ever recorded. And now it was coming for them. The black structure slowly began fading. The voice weakened. "We have waited for millions of years." The stars around it dimmed. "Now you must choose." The bridge shook violently. The ancient entity delivered its final warning. "Run." The structure vanished. Not exploded. Not jumped to hyperspace. Simply ceased to exist. Every sensor aboard the flagship went silent. The impossible object was gone, leaving only one terrifying truth behind. Something far worse was coming. And the countdown had already begun. The emergency summit began 12 hours later. Never in coalition history had so many leaders gathered in one place. Presidents, emperors, generals, scientists, corporate dynasties, representatives from more than 300 civilizations appeared through holographic links. The atmosphere was tense. Fear hung over the conference chamber like a storm cloud. At the center of the room stood Commander Voss, Admiral Thorne, and Captain Elena Ward. Behind them floated the recording of the ancient structure's warning. 73 standard days. Nobody liked seeing it. Unfortunately, nobody could ignore it. A representative from the Altarian Empire spoke first. How do we know this isn't a deception? Several delegates immediately agreed. Elena folded her arms. Because we've already lost 6 frontier systems. The room became silent. Fresh reports had arrived only minutes earlier. Entire colonies had vanished. No debris, no survivors, no distress calls, just silence, as though those worlds had never existed. A scientist from the Vega Consortium cleared her throat. What exactly are these hunters? Nobody answered immediately, because nobody knew. The ancient entity had provided only fragments. Ancient civilizations destroyed. Entire galaxies consumed. The builders erased. History rewritten. The information felt less like intelligence and more like a nightmare. Then another report arrived. The chamber lights turned red. A communications officer rushed forward. Admiral. Everyone turned. The 7th exploration fleet is gone. The room froze. Explain. The officer swallowed. They engaged an unknown contact 40 minutes ago. What happened? The officer looked pale. They fired everything. Images appeared above the chamber. Hundreds of coalition warships. One of the most powerful fleets ever assembled. Battleships, carriers, planetary siege platforms. Enough firepower to conquer star systems. Against them floated a single object. One. A black sphere. No larger than a city. The recording continued. Thousands of weapons struck the sphere. Missiles, railguns, plasma lances, antimatter torpedoes. The attack should have vaporized a planet. Instead, nothing happened. The sphere didn't move, didn't react, didn't defend itself. The weapons simply disappeared, as if reality itself swallowed them. A horrified silence filled the chamber. Then the sphere moved. A single pulse expanded outward. The recording ended instantly. The officer's voice trembled. When the pulse passed through the fleet, nobody wanted to hear the answer. Every ship disappeared. Shock spread through the summit. One attack, one pulse, an entire fleet erased. Even Elena looked disturbed. That frightened Voss more than the report itself. Because Elena Ward had faced impossible situations before, and she had never looked worried. Until now, another hologram suddenly activated. A scientist appeared. Her face was covered in sweat. We found something. Everyone turned. What? The pulse. The scientist enlarged several equations. The energy signature doesn't match anything known. Admiral Thorne frowned. Meaning? The scientist hesitated. Then she spoke. The hunters aren't destroying matter. The room became silent. What are they doing? The scientist's voice dropped. They're removing it. Nobody understood. Removing it where? We don't know. The answer chilled everyone. Entire fleets, entire planets, entire civilizations, simply removed from existence. No explosion, no destruction, no remains, just gone. The summit descended into chaos. Some leaders demanded evacuation. Others demanded war. Several governments announced immediate border closures. Within hours, panic spread across the galaxy. Trade collapsed. Markets crashed. Refugee convoys filled major hyperlanes. Millions fled toward the core worlds. Unfortunately, distance offered little comfort. The hunters continued advancing. System after system disappeared. The countdown dropped. 61 days remaining. Then 58. Then 55. Every day another world vanished. The coalition's greatest fleets gathered near the core. For the first time in recorded history, every major power agreed to fight together. It still didn't feel like enough. Late one night, Commander Voss found Elena standing alone in the observation deck. The stars drifted silently outside. She seemed unusually quiet. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No." He stood beside her. For several minutes neither spoke. Finally Voss broke the silence. "You're afraid." It wasn't a question. The human nodded. "Yes." The answer surprised him. Elena had never admitted fear before. "Why?" She stared into the darkness. "Because this feels familiar." Voss frowned. "What do you mean?" Slowly, Elena turned toward him. Her expression had become deadly serious. "The signal wasn't the only thing I found beyond the outer rim." A chill ran through him. "What else did you find?" The human hesitated. For the first time since he had met her, she looked uncertain. Then she spoke. "Something survived." The commander's blood ran cold. "What survived?" Elena looked back toward the stars, toward the approaching darkness, and answered with 4 words that would change everything. "One of the builders." Far beyond the edge of known space, the hunters continued their advance. And for the first time in millions of years, something ancient had begun to wake up. Commander Voss stared at Elena. "One of the builders survived?" The human nodded slowly. "The hunters thought they destroyed them all." The observation deck fell silent. Outside the viewport, thousands of stars burned across the darkness. Yet for the first time the galaxy felt very small, very fragile. "Where is it?" Voss asked. Elena hesitated. Then she activated a hologram. A single location appeared, far beyond known space, beyond coalition territory, beyond every map ever created. Admiral Thorne entered the room at that moment. He saw the coordinates. His face immediately changed. "No." Elena looked at him. "We don't have a choice." The admiral cursed. "What is it?" Voss demanded. Elena answered quietly. "The graveyard." The name alone sounded wrong. Ancient, forbidden, dangerous. Thousands of years ago, explorers had reported strange signals from that region. Every expedition disappeared. No survivors ever returned. Eventually the area had been declared off limits. History forgot it existed. The builders never did. 3 days later, the largest fleet in galactic history jumped into hyperspace. Over 80,000 warships. Every major civilization. Every surviving military force. Human, alien, machine. For the first time, the galaxy stood united. The journey lasted 11 days. When they arrived, nobody spoke. The graveyard stretched across several light years. Millions of colossal structures drifted through space. Ancient ships, ancient cities, ancient machines. Broken remains of civilizations older than recorded history. Voss felt insignificant just looking at them. The builders had been real, and this place was their tomb. Then the sensors detected something. A signal. Weak, ancient, alive. Elena smiled. "We found him." The fleet followed the transmission. Hours later they reached the center of the graveyard. Everyone froze. A single structure floated there, larger than a planet, larger than anything humanity had ever built. Golden light flowed across its surface. Ancient symbols awakened, and for the first time in millions of years, the builder opened its eyes. The entire fleet felt the presence immediately. Not a voice, not a sound, a mind, ancient beyond imagination. "You came." The message echoed through every ship, every species, every language. Voss nearly collapsed under its weight. Elena stepped forward. "The hunters are coming." Silence followed. Then the builder responded. "I know." Stars seemed to dim around it. "They have always been coming." The builder shared memories. Entire galaxies appeared. Ancient civilizations. Impossible technologies. Worlds filled with life. Then came the hunters. Darkness spreading between the stars. Civilizations erased. History consumed. Reality itself rewritten. Millions of years of war unfolded in seconds. Every person in the fleet witnessed it. Every person understood. The hunters were not invaders. They were cleaners. A force created long before the first civilizations. Their purpose was simple. When intelligent life became powerful enough to threaten reality itself, the hunters arrived and erased it. The revelation shocked the galaxy. The hunters believed they were protecting existence. Unfortunately, that protection meant extermination. The builder's final memory ended. Silence filled every ship. Commander Voss finally understood. This wasn't a war. It was a cycle. One that had repeated for billions of years. And now it was happening again. Then alarms erupted. Thousands of alarms. Across every vessel. The hunters had arrived. The stars disappeared. Not because they exploded. Because something larger blocked them. Millions of black spheres emerged from hyperspace. An endless wall of darkness. The final enemy. Fear spread through the fleet. Even veterans trembled. The builder remained calm. This is your choice. Its golden light intensified. Run. Nobody moved. The ancient being paused. Then another message followed. One that would be remembered forever. Or fight for the right to exist. Elena smiled. Commander Voss laughed. Not because the situation was funny. Because the alternative was despair. Across the fleet, thousands of captains issued orders. Weapons activated. Shields ignited. Engines roared. For the first time in galactic history, every civilization stood together. Humans beside aliens. Machines beside organics. Former enemies side by side. The hunters advanced. The galaxy answered. The battle began. What followed entered legend. Stars shattered. Reality bent. Entire fleets sacrificed themselves. Worlds were saved. Worlds were lost. The builder fought like a living sun. The hunters fought like inevitable extinction. For 17 hours the universe burned. Then came the turning point. Elena Ward discovered what countless civilizations never had. The hunters had one weakness. Choice. They could predict logic. They could predict probability. They could predict mathematics. But they could not predict people willing to do the impossible. Especially humans. The final plan was insane. Completely irrational. Almost certainly suicidal. Which was exactly why it worked. At the center of the battlefield, Elena led a small strike force directly into the Hunter's command nexus. Commander Voss called it madness. Admiral Thorne called it impossible. Elena called it Tuesday. The resulting explosion illuminated half the sector. The command nexus collapsed. The Hunters faltered. For the first time in billions of years, they hesitated. The builder attacked. The United Fleet attacked. The Hunters broke. Dark spheres vanished across the stars. One after another. Then silence returned. The war was over. Weeks later, the galaxy celebrated. Entire worlds held festivals. Monuments were built. Songs were written. History was rewritten. Commander Voss stood on the observation deck of the Resolute watching the stars. The builder had departed. Nobody knew where. Perhaps it was rebuilding. Perhaps it was simply resting. Elena joined him. "You think they'll come back?" he asked. "The hunters." She smiled. "Probably." That wasn't reassuring. "But next time," she continued, "they'll know something important." Voss looked at her. "What?" The human smiled toward the stars. "Never underestimate a galaxy that refuses to quit." Far beyond known space, ancient civilizations stirred. New frontiers waited. New mysteries called.